How bothered are we by corruption? We could guess how bothered we are exactly, but then again, I'm not exactly good at guessing. Last year I guessed the Miami Heat was a decent team, and yet here we are. Another year, no ring. I suppose that me and your girlfriend have something else in common. Sorry, yes, no, back to corruption. Luckily, we don't have to guess, because last year there was a survey done about corruption in the country. And what did they find? Well, a lot of stuff that we kind of already knew. That most people think that members of parliament, government officials, police officers, and even religious leaders are corrupt to some extent. For example, 68% of the persons in the survey felt that either some, most, or all government officials are involved in corruption. The same number of persons feel the same way about business executives. And 69% thought religious leaders in the Bahamas were involved in corruption on some level. Here's probably the worst part. 80% thought that some, most, or all police were involved in corruption. Now, if you flip those numbers, only 5%, 2%, 7%, and 5% would say with confidence that they are sure that no one in any of those areas are involved in corruption. The response to government officials being involved in corruption is interesting because this survey was taken in October last year. That's months after the general election. So these aren't stats about the old government. This is how Bahamians feel about the present government. Anyway, let's continue. You want to hear something even more disturbing? 4%. Scary, right? Wait, sorry. No, I should put that in context. Okay. When asked, how often do candidates offer rich people and businesses favors once they take office for compensation in the country's elections? You know what the results of the poll were? Only 4% of those asked were confident enough to say that they don't think it happens. In fact, 67% of the persons asked believe that wealthy individuals often use their influence on governments for their own interests and that there needs to be stricter rules to prevent this. But here's the thing. We all kind of already knew that this is how we felt. If you put a microphone in front of a Bahamian long enough, they're going to eventually stumble on the topic of corruption. But although we always complain about corruption on things like radio talk shows, only 5% of us believe that calling into a radio show or writing a letter to the editor does anything to stop corruption. In our minds, reporting corruption, when you see it or experience it, is still seen as the most effective way to fight it. But even though so many people in the survey felt that way, out of the people in the survey who had ever felt that they were forced to pay a bribe, how many of them actually reported corruption to authority to have it dealt with? 6%. 93% of them did not bother to report it. And 1%, they couldn't even remember if they reported it. So what's the point? What does this actually tell us culturally about ourselves when it comes to corruption? Perhaps it can be summed up in the answer to the question, based on your experience, what do you think is the main reason why many people do not report corruption when it occurs? Nearly half said they were afraid of the consequences. Others said that nothing will be done. Some people think that the ones that we report the corruption to are also corrupt. And some persons think corruption is normal.
Brought to you by Citizens for a Better Bahamas.